Hello chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to my series commented chess games played by computers. So in this series I published this best games played by Alphazero, Lila C0, Stockfish and many more. And today I would decided to publish one game. It was played in 2017 between Alphazero and Stockfish. So it's my first game that I analyzed of Alphazeros, and I wanted to continue to follow this TCEC season. So of course we have now the season 16 finished, and this TCEC Cup 4 is also finished. So Stockfish was winner of both of this tournament. So when this before this season 17 starts, I wanted to publish this Alphazeros game so far, because they were, I think, really one of the best chess games in history. And today I decided to show you a very nice positional game played by Alphazero versus Stockfish in the so-called French, the Steinitz variation. And as I said, I really miss Alphazero's games. I would love to Alphazero also to compete again in the TCEC seasons, maybe with some more progressive games, because we have now really a pure domination of Stockfish, and I would really love to see now Allenstein, Stockfish, Lila C0, Alphazero competing. They would be, I think, really the best chess games in history. So in their match game, it was a 1000 games match game between Alphazero versus Stockfish. I think Alphazero won 128 games, lost only 6 games. The other games ended in a draw. So it was a pure domination, but it was also an older version of Stockfish. Stockfish has now improved very much, but I think from 2017 Alphazero would have improved also. So that's why I think again it would be a very cool match game to see what would happen in a potential match game between Alphazero and Stockfish. So let's see now the game. It was really a great French defense game here. D4 played by Alphazero. We have E6 by Stockfish, and now E4. So not transposing into Queen's Gambit decline setup with C4. So here immediately E4 challenging now Stockfish to play his D5 move. Now we have the French defense, and now knight on C3. One of the most common ideas, of course, is the spinning idea, but here knight on F6 was played by Stockfish, and now we have E5, knight on D7, and now F4. We have now the so-called Steinitz variation, and now the most important thing is to realize the dynamics in the center. The dynamics is, of course, the so-called blocked pawn structure in the center. So you see we have this directed pawn structure, because of course white will coordinate the attack on the king side. And I'm repeating myself always when this happens, but I just want you to really memorize these types of position. When that happens, of course, we're searching advantages for a potential F5 move. On the other hand, Stockfish would try to make progress on the queen side, because his pawns are redirected here on the queen side. So that's why C5, C4, B5 and B4 ideas are the main strategical elements of Black's game. So here C5, as I said, trying to crack the position here around this D4 pawn. Knight on F3 was played, and now C takes D4. And this was maybe a slightly inaccuracy already by Stockfish, although it's still a common theory. But a more aggressive line is, of course, to play knight on C6, challenging immediately white center, and after bishop on E3, queen on B6 is the main line here, attacking also this D4 pawn and also this B2 pawn. So in the continuation, knight on A4 would be the main line, and now after potential queen on A5, C3. Here we have now finally C takes D4, but now B4. So this would be the most aggressive line. It leads into simplified variation, which of course Black is again trying the attack on the queen side, and white again on the king side. But here after C takes D4, you have released the pressure a little bit in the center, and now knight on B5 played by Alphazero, of course attacking this D4 pawn. And the idea is to create sort of a blocking system. If this knight takes the pawn on D4, then of course we would have a perfect blockade against this advanced pawn, because this is now a supported pawn. And when that happens in the center, you see how the dynamics changed now a little bit in the center. You would love to play a perfect blockade against this advanced D5 pawn. So this is now Alphazero's preparation. Of course, with the counter attack we can take this pawn immediately, but the positional idea is to create this blocking system. Bishop on B4, bishop on D2, we have bishop on C4, b5, and now b4 by Alphazero, attacking this bishop, bishop on e7, and now finally knight takes on d4, knight on c6, c3. You see how Alphazero built simply this this blockade around this d4 pawn, d4 knight with this pawn on c3. So now this d4 is very well protected. You can even make more protection here with the potential e3 move, and now you see this pawn on d5 would never advance. Of course it would advance if white simply allows it, but here perfect blockade. Now we can play the bishop on d3, and it creates a very powerful diagonal for light square bishop. a5 played by Stockfish. We have b5 creating a counter attack. We have knight takes on d4, c takes d4, and now knight on b6. You see, if you try a4 immediately, then bishop on d3, it's not a problem. You have sort of lost the tempo. We can play queen on c2 and attack this h7 pawn. So that's why knight on b6, with the preparation to play this move knight on c4. This knight on c4 would be a very nice positional move, because there are no pawns here. I hope you realize there's no b pawn anymore to advance and potentially kick away a potential knight on c4 outpost, and you don't have also anymore the possibility to kick away the knight with the d pawn. So that's why this positional idea of Stockfish to cement the knight on c4 is perfectly fine. That's why a4 here by Alphazero supporting this b4, and now knight on c4. If you take this knight, it leads now into a position in which you don't have a firm pawn structure here anymore in the center. This is now main weakness, although it can always be protected with bishop on c3. This backward pawn is always something that white has to worry about, and now after potential b6 and bishop on b7, this bishop would be very well placed and would have a perfect diagonal. So it doesn't even matter if we lose this pawn. With this bishop pair in this open position, it will be a real risky game here for white. So you see how the dynamics can change by simply one trade of pieces. By one pawn move, the dynamics can really change. The center can get really changed. Now you see we have a blocked pawn structure in the center. If after this potential bishop takes on c4 move and d takes c4, the game becomes again dynamic. So that's why here after knight on c4, bishop on d3 was played by Alphazero, not allowing the position to get opened. Now it's our turn here to play something like g4, f5, because basically from white's perspective we have solved our problems here on the queen side, because nothing can happen. We have here sort of a symmetrical pawn structure. You cannot create a pass pawn here, but on the other hand, here we can also always try the potential g4 and f5 pawn breakthroughs here. Knight on d2 was played by Stockfish. Maybe it was a better idea to play a knight on b2, first attacking the queen, and then here after queen on b3 to take this bishop, because after queen takes on d3, white doesn't have anymore the light square bishop, and the light square bishop had a better diagonal than this dark square bishop, because this dark square bishop is a little bit blocked out by its own pawn. So here Stockfish decided to take this dark square bishop with the knight on d2, and now Alphazero plays a very interesting idea, plays the move king on d2. So you have now the possibility to take out with the queen, to take out with the knight, but here a very tricky move. King takes on d2, and because of this very powerful space advantage that we have created here by these three pawns, this is a very nice square for the king, because the king cannot be attacked anymore. Black would love now to have maybe a knight to try to cement it here on f5, or again to cement it on c4, but because Stockfish gave up this very powerful knight on c4, now the position is really static, and we can really play our king on e3, and it's perfectly secured. It's unbelievable how great this positional game was played here by Alphazero. We have knight on d7, bishop on d7, pardon me. We have now problems here for the bishops. The bishops don't have good diagonals, because the bishops need of course space, and here with this blocked pawn structure in the center, the bishops are really out of game. King on e3, simply improving the position of the king. I hope you realize this king is perfectly fine here. If you try something like g5 in order to open the position, it's not a problem. We can play f takes g5. After bishop takes on g5, we can play simply king on f2, and still we have the possibility to play something like g3 h4, rook on f1, king on g1, secure the king, and play basically against this very weak backward pawn. Because I hope you realize, although black has this light square bishop, still black has some light square problems, because this would be a very weak pawn on f7. It would become really an object of white's attack, and I hope you realize that it's also not possible here for black to castle, because you don't have any more this knight as a defender of this h7. So many great positional stuff can happen here from white's perspective. That's why here b6 was played by Stockfish, simply improving the position of this pawn. But again, it doesn't basically improve the position of this light square bishop. This light square bishop is really the worst piece on the board. And now g4, simply played by Alphazero, simply pushing forward, preparing this f5 move, because as I said, we have this directed pawn structure in the center. It's blocked out, so that's why we should coordinate the attack here on the king side. h5, we have queen on g1, we have h takes g4, and now queen takes on g4. Bishop on f8 was played. Also a very passive move. Here, if you try something like g6, it's even worse, because here simply h4, simply pushing forward. You can try rook on c8 to get use of the c file, but now h5, simply continuing the attack. And now we have g takes h5. We can take with the rook, and here queen on g7 would be this very tricky move, because we have now the possibility to attack also through h7, h8. Bishop on g6 would be also a very tricky move, so that's why you would be forced basically to play the move rook on c3. But now rook on h8, a very nice idea. And then after rook takes on h8, queen takes on h8, you have to cover with the bishop, and now knight on g5. So in this game, I think black doesn't have any chances to win. In the next move, we can also try queen on g8, attacking this f7 weakness, king on d2, attacking the rook. We can also get use of this rook, including the last piece in the attack. So I think it will be a completely winning game here for white. So that's why after queen on g4, bishop on f8 was played, protecting, not weakening the pawn structure further here on the king side with the move g6. And now h4. Again, Alphazero simply continued the attack. We have queen on e7, and now rook on c1. We have g6. You see, now finally Stockfish played the move g6, because we don't have any more this rook on h1. And now rook on c2, doubling up on the c file, king on d8, and now rook on c1. All of these pieces, all of white's pieces, are now in perfect harmony. They're really on the best squares. Basically, we would love maybe just to improve the position of this knight on g5, but then again, it can be attacked with the move bishop on h6. So that's why here queen on e8 was played, and it was maybe a slight inaccuracy here by Stockfish. Maybe rook on c8 would have been better, immediately competing with this very powerful rooks on c8. But instead of that, queen on e8, it was also a sort of slightly passive move, and now it gives the opportunity the rook to come here on c7. And now finally rook on c8. We have rook takes on c8, bishop takes on c8, and now rook on c6, bishop on b7. You cannot take this pawn on b6 because you get king on c7 and you lose the rook. You have to give up some material, so that's why rook on c2, retreating with this rook, again on a very active square, again with the possibility to change these directions of the attack. We have now the possibility to attack through the c file and also through the h file. So again, I'm pointing out how passive these pieces are. This rook, the bishop, and the queen is on the back rank. Here the bishop is blocked out by its own pawn, so the activity of white's pieces is much better. So king on d7, we have knight on g5, improving the position of the knight, and now bishop on e7. And now very nice move, bishop on g6. Very cool positional sacrifice. Of course, if you take immediately, then you get queen on e6, and it would be basically game over here. It would be a checkmate. So that's why after bishop on g6, a forced line is now bishop takes on g5. We have queen takes on g5, and now f takes g6, and now Alphazero finds a very good move. It's the move f5. Tricky stuff. Let's see what happens if you take with the e pawn. If you take e takes f5, and it will be again game over, because queen on f6 is very tricky. We can also attack this b6 weakness. We can also create very powerful checks here on g7. And if you try something like queen on e7 in order to defend here, then rook on c7 is the main idea, deflecting the king from the defense of the queen. And if you lose the queen, then again it would be game over. So here, if you try g takes f5 again, it's even worse. You have queen on h7 with check. Again, you have to cover with the queen, and again this idea would be to play the move rook on c7, or we can take immediately this rook on h6. So here, if you try something like king on d8, again you get checkmated here on c7. So you see this f5 move is really a great pawn breakthrough, although you can take it with both of these pawns. But the activity, again I'm pointing out, the activity of white's pieces was too much to handle here for white with this passive setup. Now black simply continue with the move rook on g8, and now queen on h6, again with the possibility to place a very serious threat here, queen on h7. That's why queen on f7 had to be played, but now f6, creating a very important strategical element in the endgame, and it's this so-called supported pass pawn. The supported pass pawn, especially on the 6th rank, is something that black has to worry now all the time. And the problem is, again I'm pointing out, this bishop is so blocked out that it's basically a pawn. It's not that you have a extra bishop here, it's like you have an extra pawn maybe, but again the activity of white is simply too much to handle. King on d8, we have now king on d2, improving the position of the king, and now king on d7, rook on c1, king on d8, and now queen on e3. You see how Alphazero liberated this very important square for the queen, but staying on dark squares in order to defend a potential check. And now queen on c3 is a serious threat, and somehow sneak into black's position. Here queen on f8 was played, queen on c3, and now queen on b4 was played. And Stockfish idea here is to trade off the queens to undermine white's pressure here on the c file, but it was basically a mistake, because here Alphazero calculated all of that, of course, and played simply queen takes on c3, queen takes on b4. So after a takes b4, we have now weak pawn on b4. We have also weak pawn on g6. We have now supported pass pawn here on f6, and we have the possibility to create here again another extra pass pawn. So this two pieces, the bishop and the rook, would be really spread and deflected from the defense of this potential promotion here on f7 and f8. So that's why, again, this is not a good position here for black. Here b3 tried by Stockfish. Maybe a better idea is to play bishop on c8, but then h5 is very tricky. You can try g5, but then again h6. Bishop on d7 could be idea, but now king on c3. King on c2 with the preparation to play b3, and then after that b4. Again with the idea a5 and b6, creating again a pass pawn. So b3 was played, simply giving up the pawn immediately. King on c3 was played, bishop on c8, king on b3. We have now again a different move order, bishop on d7, but now king on b4 with the preparation, as I said, bishop on e8, and now rook on a1, and now this rook will come into the game through the a file. Here king on c7 was played, and now simply a5. Bishop on d7, we have a takes b6, king takes on b6, but now rook on a6 attacking the king. The king has to retreat here on b7, and now this king can come into the game, and you see now this weak holes, the weak squares in black's position. Now we can infiltrate with our king here to d6, e7, and simply support this pass pawn. Basically it's already a losing endgame here for black. King on d8, we have rook on a2, changing the direction of the attack. Rook on c8, you see another problem. We have king on d6. If you take this pawn, then we can simply take this pawn out, and we would then have two connected pass pawns, which is immediately game over, because if we connect these two pawns on the 6th rank, this rook can never battle against it. Again, with the possibility to play rook on g2 and then even take out this pawn. This pawn is a weakness, so again it would be completely winning. So that's why here after king on d6, bishop on e8 was played. But you see now how the king is becoming the best piece on the board. It's basically like a queen all over the board, dancing here and attacking all of these black pieces. Bishop on e8, and now h takes g5, and in this position Stockfish resigned. There's no way that you can prevent this f7 move. If you try something like rook on c7, then of course we'll first take and then advance these two pawns, and again it will be game over. Okay, great game by Alphazero here with this sacrifice, with this bishop sacrifice, and then this pawn breakthrough with the move f5. Tricky stuff. Great game. As I said, it was played in 2017. You can check out this PGN in the description below, analyze it for yourself. I really enjoyed this game, and we'll follow now more Alphazero games. It will follow them before this, till this TCEC season 17. When that happens, then we follow again this season 17 with some more Lila C0 and Stockfish and Ellenstein games. But I would really love to see Alphazero again competing in this games between against Stockfish and Lila C0, maybe, and against Ellenstein, because I think we'll need a new engine that can really crush the other engines, and I would really love to see that. Okay, meanwhile you can watch my other commented chess games played by computers with some more Stockfish, Lila C0, Ellenstein games, and you can also watch my best chess games of all times if you want to see humans playing their best chess games in history, like Mikhail Tal, Bobby Fischer, and many more. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.